the tutorial you've all been waiting for. We're finally going to learn how to sew your panels together. As you can see, I made some new scrap panels, example panels to show you. So imagine that the red side is your fashion fabric and the white side is your strength fabric. So you want the red side to look finished. And I stitched here, I basted the two pieces together in blue. I used the machine stitching at just its widest stitch length. And what you can see here in the red Sharpie is the outline that I'm just going to be following when I'm pinning and sewing the panels together. I'll be showing you two different types of stitches today. The first is going to be a lock stitch and the second type is going to be a top stitch. And actually for both of them, the first step is exactly the same. I've sewn corsets entirely using lock stitches and I've sewn corsets using entirely top stitches, and I've found no real obvious benefit of using one over the other, so it's really your choice. You can also use flat felled seams for your corset because those are also very strong, but they're not my favorite. I admit I am not the best flat fell seamer, so you can just look at one of the other hundreds of tutorials on YouTube on how to do flat felling. But what you want to do to start off both the top stitch and the lock stitch, what you're just going to do is set this to probably the second shortest stitch you have. So I'm going to set it to a 2 here. And stick the needle in right here. Stick the needle in right at the point where you want it to start, right there, and remove that first pin. Now if your machine can sew slowly, that's good, because you want to sew as slowly as possible to have the best control possible. But if you have a new machine like I do that has plastic gears, it might be a little bit more difficult to sew slowly. So I'll try to do my best here. So I'm just going to make a couple stitches forward, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into reverse and sew a couple stitches back. And what that does is it locks those stitches in place. Now what you want to do is just continue sewing in a straight line here, removing the pins as you go until you get to the very end. I like to remove my pins right as it's about to hit the front of the foot here, because then I know that the foot is going to make sure that the panel pieces are staying in place, in the same place that I wanted it, and there's minimal shifting when I take out the pin. One thing that you should never do is sew over your pins. It's bad for your machine, it's bad for the pins, it's bad for everything. Just don't do it. If you have very brittle pins, then you should be wearing glasses or safety goggles while you're doing this, because you can risk breaking a pin or your sewing needle at this point. Okay, and when you get to the end here, what you want to do is once again hit the reverse button and just make a couple of stitches back. And then just cut the threads, and there you go. So next I'm going to show you how to do the lock stitch, and then after that I'm going to show you how to do the top stitch. The lock stitch is actually quite easy. What you need to do is just basically so over the line you just made. The one thing that you do need to do is, if you look up here, I'm going to switch this from a 2 to a 1. I hope we can focus. Yeah, right there. So what that does is, because the stitches are not the same length, then they're going to lock over each other. And that way your threads shouldn't rip. With the lock stitch, the main strength from your corset is actually coming from the thread. So in this situation, you want to be careful to choose very strong thread, such as silk thread. That's very good, it's very strong. Some people like to use upholstery thread because it's specifically made to take lots of stress. But one thing you need to be careful of is upholstery thread is often thick. So make sure that your machine can handle it and you have needles that can properly handle the thread without breaking. So all you need to do for this top stitch is to go over it once again the same way you had before, just with the smaller stitch. Okay, so that is a lock stitch, and all you need to do here is press your panels open like so on this side and on this side, and as you can see, it is very strong. That is not ripping. So yeah, now you're done your first seam and you can continue on all the rest of your seams in the same way. Now to do a top stitch, it's a little bit different. After you did the first row of stitching, what I did was I pressed it open, and I pressed these two pieces open as well. And then after that, I just pressed these two little seam allowances to one side like this, so that it lies nice and flat. After this, what we're going to do is we're just going to flip it over. I always like to sew with the fabric, the fashion fabric facing up, so that I know I have very clean lines on the front. And what we're going to do is on the panel in which these seam allowances are facing, we're just going to sew a very tiny bit away from our original seam, like maybe 1/8 of an inch or even 1/16 of an inch. So just the same way we had done before, make sure that you do a bit of a back stitch, and then go forward slowly and carefully, making sure that it's very straight and even. And when you get to the end, do another back stitch. Okay, and this is what it looks like. See, this is why I need to get my sewing machine service. It's not making very straight stitches. But you get the main idea. What you have is you have your seam here, and then just a little bit away you have the top stitching there. So when you're doing your top stitching, you can have a contrasting color of your choice, or you can make it the same color as your fashion fabric to make it all match. And this is what it looks like on the other side. So this was your original stitch right there, and that's the top stitch. Now with this type of stitch, much of the stress is on the fabric and not just the thread. As you can just see, you sewed through 3 pieces of fabric right there, and there is no one stitch of thread that is taking all the stress of it. Some people prefer to do a top stitch or a flat fell seam as opposed to the lock stitch like I showed you before, but for the purpose of my level of lacing, both have worked fine for me. So it's just a matter of choice for you. One other thing is, if you are going to be pressing all of your seams to one side, make sure that you don't have your seam allowances facing in all different directions. Like if you're going to press one seam allowance to the right, make sure all of your seam allowances are pressed to the right. That way you can minimize the amount of bulk that's going to be kind of bunching up between the seams of your corset, and that's what makes it smooth. Yeah, so that's about it. If you have any questions, once again, feel free to contact me. I'll help you any way I can. I think that's it. So I'll talk to you next time, guys. Bye.